Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nina. Today we're going to be going over the brush tool in Illustrator and the tools that are normally stacked underneath the brush tool in Illustrator as well, like the blob brush tool, the pencil tool, and the smooth tool. So let's get into it. Okay, so when you're in Illustrator, you'll see the brush tool on the side here. It looks like a little paintbrush, and the keyboard shortcut for that is B. Now, the brush tool is great for making freeform shapes. It has a little bit of an advantage over the pen tool for when you're drawing things that are supposed to be more hand done or more illustration type things rather than design type things. Or I guess it just depends on the aesthetic you're going for. So with the pen tool, when you're drawing, you would click and drag and create paths that way. The pen tool is great. It's very accurate, and if you learn how to use it well, it can be an incredibly powerful tool. But sometimes you want to just be able to actually draw instead of placing points and manipulating handles. So if that's the case, use the brush tool. Now the brush tool, like some of these other ones that you'll see, if you double click it, there are some settings you can go into. So fidelity is how accurately Illustrator will display the path you've drawn. So if I have it on accurate, it's going to show every little corner I make and every little bump. But if you bring it up here to smooth, then it's going to make a much smoother version of what I just drew. There are a few other settings you can change here. One is fill new brush strokes. So if you have that selected and if you have a fill color selected, then you can draw, and whatever you draw will be filled by your fill color. Keep selected will obviously just keep what you've done selected after you draw it, whereas if you didn't have that, it wouldn't keep these selected blue. And then edit selected paths. You can choose how close you have to be to the path to be able to edit it, but you can actually edit your path with the brush tool itself. Instead of going back to one of the selection tools to do it, you can do it right with the brush tool. If you draw a path and you don't like exactly where it went, then if it's selected, you can draw over that again. Start on the line and redraw that part, and it will reshape that path for you. But if you're further away than what you have in your options here, then it will draw a new path. And keep in mind that this only works on the path that is selected. See, if I try to draw on the paths that are not selected, it will just make a new line. So that's the brush tool. You also have a brush panel here, which is quite the powerful little thing. If you don't see this, you can go up to your window and then go to brushes and then click that, and it will bring it out for you, and I just unchecked it and made it go away. Don't do that. So here you can see that there are a couple of different brush options, and you can draw with those and it will look like the thing you see in the panel there. If you change the stroke weight, then it makes the brush bigger or smaller. And if you go here up to the side, these three lines here up at the top of the brush panel, you can go to Open Brush Library, and as you can see, there are a lot of different ones to choose from. Let's see what grunge looks like. And you can open those up, and there's a ton of them to choose from. You can select one and draw with them, but you can also select a path that you've already drawn and click a different brush, and it will change it to that brush as well. So art brushes are the ones that kind of stretch along with your stroke, and pattern brushes have a pattern that they just repeat along the line. This one you can see is kind of a seam on pants or something like that, which is pretty cool. And you can also make up your own brushes if you want to. I made one that is a floral pattern brush before. So what I did was I made this little pattern, kind of like doodle flowers, which I used, I think, the blob brush tool for that, I'm not sure. But anyway, then you just select it, and when you do a pattern brush, you're going to want to make it horizontal. Then you click and drag it into your brush panel and click pattern brush, because that's what this one would be. I don't want it to stretch along the stroke like an art brush, and I don't want it to scatter, so I'm going to click pattern brush here. And then you can choose a couple of options for what it does in the corners, and it'll give you a little preview as to what it will look like when you use it. There are some other options here you can play around with, but that's basically the gist of it. And then when you draw, it will repeat that pattern along the stroke that you draw. And even if you had a different path, like one that you made from a shape or anything like that, you could also put your brush onto that and it would work just the same. And again, you can change the stroke weight. So that's your brush tool. Then if you right click on the brush tool, it'll come up with this menu, and then you can see the other tools that we're going to be going over today. And one of them is the blob brush tool, and the keyboard shortcut for that is Shift B. The blob brush tool is different from the brush tool in that when you draw to color in an area like this, instead of being one zigzaggy path, this becomes all one shape. It only selects the outside of where you've drawn. Whereas if you were with the brush tool and you did the same thing, this would all be one continuous path that you would then have to expand if you wanted it to become like this. See, this is just the outline. Here, if we put it in outline mode, you can see the difference. This is just the outside of it, that is a path, and this is all one crazy path, which you can change the stroke size of. Also, if you wanted to go into outline mode, that's Control Y, and see if you change the stroke size of this brush path, it would look completely different, and then you can also edit it to have any of these effects or, you know, anything like that. That one looks crazy. But this one, you can't do that too, because it would only edit the outside where the path is. The Blob Brush tool also has its own settings that you can go into by double clicking on the tool. It also has fidelity, but a big one that you can choose or not choose here is the merge only with selection option. So if I have that unchecked and I drew like this, if I drew again, it would automatically merge with that selection. So now this whole thing is all one. But if I were to check that, then if I colored over this, it wouldn't merge with that. See, there's two separate shapes now. This one is something that I can pull away from that one. I like to have it on this setting so that it doesn't automatically merge, because I find it easier to edit if you accidentally mess up, and it's a less destructive way of drawing. These settings you can change, especially if you have like a drawing tablet, which I have the settings on here for my drawing tablet, so I have it on pressure. It will change sizes with how hard or soft you press, just like a regular pen or pencil or brush would do if you were painting with a physical medium. You can also change the shape of the brush and the way that is angled if you wanted to make kind of like a calligraphic brush or something like that. The Blob Brush tool I've found is mainly for coloring things in, and the brush tool is for edges or if you wanted to change the brush itself. Alright, so the next tool is the pencil tool, keyboard shortcut N. Pencil tool is a pretty cool one. This also has some options that are similar to the brush tool that you can change. The fidelity, again, is one, and then the fill new pencil strokes is just like when we filled the brush strokes. Keep selected, self-explanatory. This one allows you to toggle to the smooth tool when you hold the Alt key, which I think is a great idea because sometimes when you're drawing with the pencil tool, things can look a little bit too sharp in some areas, and when you can easily switch to the smooth tool, that makes things a lot easier. So when this is checked, close paths when ends are within, and then you can choose your amount of pixels, basically means that if I'm within 15 pixels, which is what I had there, then it will close this path for me. If I'm further than those 15 pixels though, then it will not close that for me. And then we have this edit selected paths option. That's just like in the brush tool, so if you have this line selected, then you can start on the line or within whatever amount of pixels you put in the options, and if you draw, it will redraw that line for you. The pencil tool as well, the paths that you make with it can be edited with the brush tools panel, and you can apply those brushes to it. I also forgot to mention that you can just use the open and close bracket keys, and that will change your brush size for you. So now let's go on to the smooth tool. It doesn't have a keyboard shortcut, but you could assign one if you wanted to up in the settings, but I'm not going to right this second. But if there are areas that are, that's a bad example, let's change that. So if I'm trying to draw a curve here and it's bumpier than I want it to be, you can go on over to the smooth tool and start on that path and drag out like that, and it will smooth it for you. And if you keep going over it, it will smooth it a little bit more. This is also helpful for when you have a lot of anchor points. Like if I drew a line here with the pencil tool, if you look, you can see that there's a whole lot of anchor points along this path. And I just don't want that many, because then it's hard to edit. If I just wanted to edit a little bit of this path and I moved the anchor points around, I couldn't edit as much as I wanted to because there are other anchor points stopping it from being edited, and I would have to just change every single one of those. So the smooth tool helps with both making this a smoother line and with decreasing the amount of anchor points that are used on it. And now if I wanted to go in and edit that, I could do it a lot easier. Okay, so those were drawing tools in Illustrator. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Make sure to like if you learned something and subscribe for more graphic design content in the future. And I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!